Hello and welcome back to Spiritual Summaries. If you're just joining us on this enlightening journey, we've already explored the foundational tales in the book of Genesis. Those episodes are available, so if you'd like to start at the very beginning and see the roots of these narratives, I highly recommend checking them out. Today, we're embarking on the world of the book of Exodus, delving into chapters 1 through 6. Here, we follow the Israelites as they navigate the challenges of life in Egypt and witness the early life and divine calling of Moses, one of the Bible's most iconic figures. As always with Spiritual Summaries, these rundowns aim to be a guide, an appetizer if you will, sparking your curiosity about these ancient stories. While our summaries provide an overview, the depth and richness of the Bible invite a deeper exploration. So, I encourage each of you to dive into the actual texts, read for yourselves, and form your own interpretations. There's no substitute for the first-hand experience of these timeless tales. Without further ado, let's dive into Exodus. Exodus chapter 1. After the death of Joseph and his brothers, the Israelites multiply in Egypt, becoming extremely numerous. Fearing their growing numbers, the new Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph, oppresses the Israelites. He forces them into hard labor, building store cities like Pithom and Ramses. However, despite the harsh conditions, the Israelites continue to thrive. Worried, Pharaoh orders the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to kill any Hebrew male babies at birth. But they refuse, fearing God more than Pharaoh. When confronted, they justify their actions by saying Hebrew women give birth before they can get there. As a result, God blesses these midwives. Finally, Pharaoh commands all Egyptians to throw every Hebrew male child born into the Nile, trying to control the population further. Exodus chapter 2. In the midst of Pharaoh's cruel edict, a Hebrew woman gives birth to a son and hides him for 3 months. When she can no longer hide him, she places him in a waterproof basket and sets it among the reeds of the Nile, with the child's sister watching from a distance. Pharaoh's daughter discovers the baby while she's bathing in the Nile. Moved with compassion, she decides to keep him. The baby's sister approaches Pharaoh's daughter and suggests a Hebrew nurse to breastfeed the child. Consequently, the baby's own mother is chosen to nurse him. After he's weaned, he's taken to Pharaoh's palace, where he's named Moses, which means drawn out because he was drawn out of the water. As Moses grows up, he witnesses the suffering of his people. One day, he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. Outraged, Moses kills the Egyptian and hides his body. However, when he tries to mediate a fight between two Hebrews the next day, he realizes his act hasn't gone unnoticed. Fearing Pharaoh's wrath, Moses flees to Midian. In Midian, Moses rescues the 7 daughters of Reuel, also called Jethro, from shepherds at a well and helps them water their flocks. Grateful, Jethro invites Moses into his home and gives him his daughter, Zipporah, in marriage. They have a son named Gershom. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, the plight of the Israelites worsens, and they cry out to God. God remembers his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and begins to act. Exodus chapter 3. Moses, now tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro in the wilderness, witnesses an extraordinary sight, a bush that is on fire but isn't consumed. Drawn to this miraculous spectacle, Moses approaches, and God calls out to him from within the bush. God identifies himself as the God of Moses' ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses hides his face, afraid to look at God directly. God tells Moses that he's aware of the suffering of the Israelites in Egypt and has chosen Moses to lead them out to a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses is hesitant and questions his own adequacy. He asks God what he should say when people inquire about God's name. God responds with "I am who I am," instructing Moses to tell the Israelites that I am has sent him. This name denotes God's eternal, unchanging nature. God further assures Moses that, with divine backing, he will successfully bring the Israelites out of Egypt. They will worship God on the very mountain where Moses is now standing. God also foretells that Pharaoh will resist letting the Israelites go but will ultimately relent after God's intervention. Exodus chapter 4. Despite God's reassurances, Moses remains uncertain and concerned that the Israelites won't believe he has spoken to God. To convince him, God performs a series of signs. He turns Moses' staff into a snake and then back into a staff. He also makes Moses' hand leprous and then heals it. As a third sign, God says that if the Israelites don't believe after the first 2 signs, Moses can pour water from the Nile onto the ground, and it will become blood. Still hesitant, Moses brings up his lack of eloquence, implying he might not be the best spokesperson. God reminds Moses that he created man's mouth and promises to help him speak and teach him what to say. Even so, Moses pleads for God to send someone else. Seeing Moses' reluctance, God grows angry but offers a solution. He proposes that Moses' brother, Aaron, will speak for him. Aaron can communicate well, and God will instruct both of them on what to say and do. Moses then returns to Jethro, his father-in-law, and requests permission to go back to Egypt. Jethro agrees, and Moses sets off with his wife and sons. Along the way, the Lord seeks to kill Moses for not circumcising his son. Zipporah, Moses' wife, quickly circumcises their son with a flint knife, touching Moses' feet with the foreskin and referring to him as a bridegroom of blood. The Lord then spares Moses. God informs Aaron about Moses' return, and the two brothers meet at Mount Horeb. Moses tells Aaron everything God has said and shown him. They then gather the elders of Israel, and Aaron recounts everything, performing the signs in front of the people. The Israelites believe and are moved, understanding that God has seen their affliction. Exodus chapter 5. With newfound determination, Moses and Aaron approach Pharaoh, delivering God's command, "Let my people go, so they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh, however, is dismissive and retorts, "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." Pharaoh believes that the Israelites are idle and are concocting plans to leave because they have too much free time. As a punitive measure, he orders that they should no longer be supplied with straw to make bricks. Instead, they are to gather straw themselves but still produce the same quota of bricks. The Israelites scatter throughout Egypt in search of straw. Still, despite their best efforts, they cannot meet Pharaoh's demands. As a result, the Israelite foremen are beaten and questioned by Pharaoh's taskmasters about the shortfall in brick production. The beleaguered foremen confront Moses and Aaron, blaming them for their worsened plight. They accuse Moses and Aaron of making them abhorrent in the eyes of Pharaoh and curse them for placing a sword in Pharaoh's hand to kill them. Moses, in distress, turns to God, asking why he has brought harm upon the people and questioning the purpose of his mission since it has only resulted in increased suffering for the Israelites. Exodus chapter 6. God responds to Moses' plea, assuring him that now, Pharaoh will certainly let the Israelites go. God reminds Moses of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, emphasizing that he has heard the groaning of the Israelites and is aware of their suffering. God further states that he will deliver them from their burdens in Egypt and bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses conveys God's words to the Israelites, but they're too disheartened by their cruel bondage to listen. When God instructs Moses to speak again to Pharaoh, Moses expresses doubt, given his previous failed attempt and his lack of eloquence. God establishes Aaron as Moses' spokesman. A brief genealogical record is provided, tracing the lineage of Levi, Moses and Aaron's ancestor, and concluding with the mention of Aaron's sons. Despite Moses' hesitations about his speaking abilities, God reiterates that Aaron will convey Moses' words, but Moses will act as God to Pharaoh, wielding the power of God's signs and wonders. Yet, God also forewarns that he will harden Pharaoh's heart, leading to an escalation of wonders in Egypt. As we conclude this segment on Exodus 1-6, we're left with powerful narratives that have shaped cultures and beliefs for millennia. Here at Spiritual Summaries, we hope to have sparked deeper interest and introspection. Before you move on, I want to leave you with a few questions to ponder. 1. How do you interpret God's response to Moses' self-doubt? 2. In the face of oppression, the Israelites remained resilient. What drives your own personal resilience during tough times? 3. The burning bush is a significant symbol of God's presence. Have there been moments in your life that you could liken to Moses' encounter at the burning bush? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. Engaging with these questions not only deepens your understanding but enriches our entire Spiritual Summaries community. If this episode resonated with you, delve deeper by reading the full chapters in the Bible. Extract the lessons, nuances, and insights firsthand. Don't forget to subscribe so you're updated on our journey through Exodus and beyond. Until next time, keep seeking, questioning, and growing.